I trust someone out there will benefit from this. It's not a topic that I wanted to talk about, but I think my higher self is just as stubborn as my physical self and won't let me sleep until I talk about it. And that's weight loss, or the inability to lose weight, and how can we use yoga to help us. If you are new to the channel, I'm Allie. We've grown a little bit since I've taken the opportunity to sit and talk to you like this. So a little history on me so I can help put this into context and how it relates back to a weight loss journey in yoga. I had severe clinical depression and a binge disorder and was bulimic in my adolescence. And then I also was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. As soon as I started insulin, I gained 30 pounds in 30 days. And then my weight continued to escalate for probably another 2 years before I was able to lose anything. Shortly after that diagnosis, I had a pituitary insufficiency, which caused my body to go through menopause at the age of 19. I've since corrected that, but for 2 decades, I did not menstruate. And I suffered all the same effects of menopause, weight gain being one of them. Now in my early 40s, I've developed an underactive thyroid, side effect of the pituitary issue, but that will also make weight loss hard, or even maintaining the weight that I am really challenging. I continue to suffer from depression, and food is a drug of choice, so learning how to not emotionally eat is really hard for me. And compounded with all of this, we have social media and the unobtainable expectations of what we think we should or need to look like. The first thing I'll say is yoga can help you lose weight. We have the obvious ways, which is a form of exercise. It's going to help us increase our muscle mass, and depending on the style of practice you do, you can work up a sweat, and it can be very cardiovascular, for example with a vinyasa class. If you have wrist or shoulder injuries, I do not recommend vinyasa unless you know how to modify properly, which is my issue. You'll notice my channel has a lot of Pilates, yoga, fusion style of classes, which is what I use to maintain strength and build muscle. Now that I've gotten that out of the way, I want to talk about the less obvious things that you may not think about when it comes to yoga, into chemistry and philosophy, especially if you've really been struggling and you're frustrated. The first thing I'll say is sometimes there is a physiological reason. When my thyroid was tanking and I didn't know it, I was having severe food cravings. I was always hungry, and my depression was getting worse and worse and worse. And I was blaming myself for the inability to control my appetite and my attitude. And really, it was my thyroid. So that might be something that you need to consider if you've never had it checked before. Thyroid is tricky. My T3 was fine. My endocrinologist refused to check any of the other levels, and I had to go to a naturopath to actually look at some of the other ones, T4, free T3, TSH, to actually get a diagnosis. So that's something that you need to consider and rule out. Something else in regards to chemistry is cortisol levels and our adrenal function. And if these are off, also weight loss can be a challenge. High cortisol levels usually promote weight gain in the midsection in the belly region. And of course, weight loss is challenging. Also promotes type 2 diabetes, again, another precursor for weight gain. And our adrenal function. You might have heard a term called wired and tired, where like you're exhausted, but yet you can't sleep or relax. We need the ability to let our parasympathetic system kick in so that we can help the body regulate, repair, and recover. Now, how can we use these two things in relation to our yoga practice? If the cortisol levels are up or the adrenals are fired on all 4 cylinders, you're going to be stuck in a state of sympathetic response, right? We're always kind of wired or waiting for the next thing, or we can't sit still. The last thing that you need to be doing is a vigorous practice all the time. We need to give our body opportunity to reset itself, our parasympathetic system. That's where deep gentle yoga, where yin yoga, or wall restorative yoga comes into play. For myself, I will do a toning, more vigorous practice in the morning. And then in the evening before bed, I'll take time to do gentle stretching. I'll use the wall, I'll do a yin practice, because I'm giving myself the opportunity to do my toning and conditioning work. I'm over 40 now. We've got to keep up that muscle tone. And then before bed, I'm giving myself permission to reset, let the parasympathetic begin, that response of rest, repair, and reset. Let's talk about our breathing and our breath pattern. And I confess I don't spend as much time talking about this in our practices as I'd like to, because I'm afraid I'll lose you. It's the less glamorous part of the practice. But many of us breathe in a reverse breath pattern, myself included, and it's where we are breathing into our chest, and never are we breathing down into the belly. This is signaling to our body that we're always in a state of emergency. The sympathetic system is firing. Think of a gazelle running on the Serengeti after a lion is chasing it. We're always in this state of emergency, and we need to learn how to reset that through breathing. It is a belly breath. We breathe into the belly first, bypass the lungs, breathe up, and then we breathe from the top down. We also can do this by learning how to extend our exhale longer than our inhale. I do that in practices of the yin style, or deep gentle, or restorative, when I'm still and I can observe the current and the flow of the breath to help reset my body. Once it knows that it's not in a state of emergency, then I could hopefully begin to signal my body that it's okay to let go of some of the excess weight. Let's talk about this concept of anger and frustration, which, if you can't lose weight, you know what that feels like. Anytime I come from this place of anger, I never make any progress. It's almost like I need to surrender to this emotion and start looking for forgiveness or self-love, to not be angry about my situation or the body that I'm stuck in. Yoga is supposed to teach us about how to accept and love ourselves unconditionally. And I've said this in other videos, that when I was diagnosed with vitiligo, yet another one, when I was 40, I became severely depressed. I gained a little bit of weight then too, from emotional eating, but I felt like I would be a monster because my body was destroying my ability to make pigment. And I needed to realize that my practice is supposed to teach me how to love myself despite my flaws. So if you're feeling angry or frustrated, how can you use your practice to find a little bit of forgiveness or love? Bring your anger, bring your frustration, and just leave it on the mat. I think of it almost like a little recycle bin. I'm just gonna bring my garbage here, and you're gonna recycle it into something new. Now we can take that a little bit deeper and talk about the philosophy of the practice. As we're learning self-love and acceptance, we also need to learn how to become witness. And what I mean by that is we need to learn how to remove ourselves from ourselves, our mind, our body, our thoughts, our negative thought patterns, for example. We need to watch from a distance without judgment and see what comes up. Now, let's say, for example, I need to confront someone, and because I'm not necessarily good with confrontation or setting boundaries, I don't want to do it. I might find myself on that particular day emotionally eating because I really just don't want to address the things that I need to address and be uncomfortable in that moment. So is there anything in your life that you might need to take a close, hard look at that is sabotaging your progress? Something like having to talk to your spouse or a loved one about something that's really bothering you or literally eating you up inside, and then you end up taking it out on food, or not exercising and numbing it by sitting in front of the TV watching Netflix. These are all really hard things to own up to and deal with, right? We're supposed to be uncomfortable in these changes. What I'm asking you to do is go above and beyond the physical to truly know how to deepen your practice and apply it to the areas of your life where you may need it the most, where we're struggling. The more yoga I do, the more I notice I can become acutely aware of what I need and eat a little more intuitively versus try to follow some restrictive diet. I also notice as I eat things, whether that I have a histamine response or something that creates more inflammation in my body. If you have more inflammation, it's just gonna make your body more resistant to weight loss. And it's also gonna be compounded because you're probably gonna be feeling some joint issue, and then you're not gonna wanna practice at all. So just taking that into consideration. Yoga does teach us to be clean in mind and body, but what about our environment? Not only is it processed foods that we need to be aware of, but what about what we're putting on our bodies? For example, fragrances or makeup. I wear makeup, but it's more of a clean-based makeup. If we are burdening our system with toxicity, the body will store those toxins in fat tissue. This is your body's protection mechanism. This is why rapid weight loss is actually quite dangerous, because we can then burden the system with toxicity as we're losing weight. We're storing the toxins in our fat tissue, basically to protect us. So taking a look at your environment, I know it doesn't seem so directly related to our weight loss, but it actually is very connected to what's going on. Start including things like body brushing, using products without fragrance, and parabens. And I will say, just as a side note, I have had to give up this ideal number of what I think the scale should be for me and my ideal weight. It is no longer realistic. I want to continue to build muscle. I think it's beautiful. I think as you age, it's even more important. What I do focus on is my body fat percentage and what I know it should be, or I'd like it to be, and what I can't go under to remain healthy. This is such a sensitive topic. I wasn't looking forward to making this. It's actually taken me way longer than I wanted to, but I wanted to make sure I was able to properly translate the importance of your practice. It's so much more than just sweating and moving on our mat. I'm hoping that someone out there who's feeling frustrated, alone, angry, can see this and know that there are so many people right now who feel exactly as you do. Myself included. I've had days where I've felt like a complete failure and I've had to wake up and start over the next day. That our yoga practice is here to teach us how to live a better life, not just through movement, but through the philosophy or through our breath. So thank you for listening. If you are new, welcome. Browse the channel, see the types of things that I offer. I give you something new every week. And namaste.